First, I would like to introduce my family. My father, Angelo, my mother, Lois, who are now with God. There were 7 of us siblings, myself the oldest, my brother Santo, he too is with God. 3 brothers, Paul, Andy, John David, 2 sisters, Diana and Regina. My baptismal name was Mary Elizabeth, and I am known in community as Sister Maria Goretti. I was born on December the 27th, 1934, in Lakeport, which was an Italian ghetto. We moved in 1941 closer to another Italian ghetto on Lake Chico. My father was a farmer, my mother a homemaker. I entered the monastery in 1949 at the age of 14, but my vocation story began when I was about 5 years old. My mother and I were coming out of church on a Sunday, and as we were leaving, I looked up and I saw who was to be my first grade teacher, Sister Lagore, coming down the steps. And I looked at my mother and I said to her, "That's what I'm going to be when I grow up." And her only comment to me was, "We will see when that time comes." The idea really never left my mind, but the strange thing was that I started school, I was afraid of the sisters. I am not sure why, because when Mom left me at school I didn't cry, but the mystery of my teacher was not what my little 5-year-old mind could figure out. As a child growing up, I would play act being a nun. I made my own outfit. It was not black and white, but a very colorful material that I used that Mom had. My cornet was made out of white cardboard. So when I wasn't out playing with my neighbor friends, I was playing being a nun. This went on until in my early teens. The neighbor boy became my interest, and we were very good friends. We shared a lot of the same ideas and liked the same kind of things. The neighborhood had a lot of children, and we spent most of our time working and playing together, and Sunday afternoons would catch us all down at the lake playing in the water and swimming, because the lake was just across the road from our homes. I never really dated until the summer that I was to leave, and that wasn't very often because my father was rather strict about that, but he relented to let me date a little bit. Most of the dates were with other boys and girls at parties and at the lake. But I knew at the time that my heart was with my friend, Frank. When I decided to ask permission to enter the monastery, it was not easy because I knew I would have to leave home and those friends behind. The day came for me to leave. That morning, early morning, our pastor came to pick me up and my dad to leave for Fort Smith. My heart was heavy as I looked around at familiar places and things that would be different where I was going. It was hard to tell my mother and little brothers goodbye. The brother next to me in age was crying, and I remember asking what was the matter, and his response was, "I stubbed my toe." Well, I knew different. We left for Fort Smith, and we arrived here about 5 p.m. The novice mistress was there to meet me as I got out of the car. I could not believe how big the building was. I was not sure I was going to like being in such a big place. My dad and I ate in the guest dining room and remember that we had tomato salad with cottage cheese on top. I never had eaten cottage cheese before, and neither had my dad. We both ate it. I did not like it, and I still don't like it. Time went quickly. I met other candidates, and we were lost in such a big place. I'm not sure how my first night went, but I knew in the morning I would have to tell my dad goodbye, and I really did not know how I was going to do that. I did, and it took all that I had not to cry. I probably did after he left. So began my monastic life. I was a candidate for 2 years because I was too young to be invested with those who were with me. I went to classes in the academy with the girls and took some subjects, the same subjects as they did. It was difficult because we could not associate with the girls. I did get into trouble now and then for breaking the rule. The next year my group we had 10 and some adventures into the novitiate. The novice mistress never knew what we were about to do next. One of the candidates left before Christmas, and then we were 9. The same pattern was followed with classes in the academy for those who were still in high school. We had a number in our group who were already graduated. I'm not sure what they did while we were in classes. We also had classes in the novitiate. We were kept very busy so as to stay out of trouble, but that didn't help sometimes. Our investing into noviceship was on June the 24th, 1951. I was given the name Sister Maria Goretti. It had been my third choice. My mother and my brother Santo and my baby brother John David, who was born after I entered the monastery, came for my investing. That year was rather difficult in many ways. We were not allowed to take classes in the academy, and so my education was finished in the summers. During this year, my best friend decided to leave, and that was hard for me. During my second year novice, I was sent out on mission to help in Subiaco Kitchen. That was some experience. On June the 24th, 1953, I made first profession with my group. We were still 9 in number. My first mission was Stuttgart, Arkansas. I was scared because I really did not know how to cook for sisters. I had worked in the monastery kitchen, but that was different than a small kitchen. I was with sisters that I did not know, and with my 5th grade teacher that I really did not care for because of her belittling me in her class. The year began to get a little easier, but one Sunday my parents surprised me and came to visit. It was only much later that my mother told me that she had come to ask me to come home because they needed help. She said when she saw how happy I was, she did not have the nerve to ask me to come home. I told her, "Mom, if you had only known how unhappy I was, if you would have asked me, I would have left with you." I went back the next year, but only till November. Then began another adventure. I was sent to the bishop's farm to help out because one of the sisters had become ill and could not do the work. It was a lifesaver for me. I stayed there until August, when I came back to the monastery to prepare for final profession. I was still working in the kitchen. My first 7 years of religious life was domestic work. I did, during those years, go to different missions to help out in the classroom. I also worked at St. Joseph's Orphanage, at Subiaco Kitchen, and the monastery kitchen. One summer I was to take some classes to finish my credits for high school, and then was sent to teach at Good Shepherd School in Conway. I taught there for 3 years and went to summer school. I then changed to St. John's in Fort Smith. Both of these schools were for black children. After 2 years there, I was missioned to Clear Creek, Missouri. I taught 1st through 4th grades there. When we began a daughter house in Missouri, I was asked to join, but I decided I wanted to remain in Arkansas. So the new school I was missioned to was Russellville. I was there for only 1 year, and then I went to Ada, Oklahoma, where I went to East Central University to finish my elementary education degree. I did not use it after I got it. After leaving Ada, I went to Crossett, Arkansas, where I worked in religious education and campus ministry. My companion and I were there for only 1 year. She was then sent to Loyola in Chicago to finish her degree in education. So I was asked to go back to Russellville, where I was there for 7 years as Director of Religious Education and Parish Associate. That was the beginning of my life's work as I see it. I went to Loyola University in Chicago and earned my master's degree in pastoral ministry. While there, I discovered a talent that I did not know I had, and that was in drama. I was again at Russellville for 7 years at that time. I was asked to be sub-prioress in 1981. I held that position for 4 years. While sub-prioress, I was also oblate director and formation director. When we elected a new prioress, she asked me to be full-time formation director. I also had the liturgy and worked closely with the sister who was in the sacristy. I went to help in one of the parishes in the DRE program. In 1989, I felt I needed a change, so I requested to look for a job in a parish in Arkansas. I chose Helena in southeast Arkansas. There I worked as DRE, tutor, prison ministry, and pastoral associate for 13 years. I returned to the monastery in 2002 at the request of the prioress to be formation director. I also now am manager of the gift shop. This is some of my journey in the monastery. It has not always been easy. There were times when I wanted to give it all up. But I always remember what my mother told me once when I wanted to leave and return home. Her wisdom words were, "You can always come home. The door is always open to you. Just remember, out here is no bed of roses either." When it gets a little frustrating and I want to give up, give in to my feelings, I recall those words and realize how true they are even today. For you who might be interested in entering community, even in your early or late teens or early 20s, it's an exciting life, but it's also a life of adventure. It's a life of searching. It's a life of coming to know and walking closely with Jesus in a very unique way and following the rule of Benedict. He was a wise man in the 6th century and laid down a small rule for us, which is very apropos for us today, even though we have to look at the language and try to fit it into where we are today. But yes, it was hard to give up family as such and move away to a place unknown, but it's also has been a grace-saving life for me. And even though there are still times, as I said, things get a little frustrating, but I always know that there's someone walking with me, and that's Jesus.